Hello, cyber students. This video is dedicated for the study of the animal cell to help you pass the Living Environment Regents exam. This is a Regents prep. Let's get right to it. No fluff, just right to what we need. So the first thing that we need to do is to get some background information. We need to do some quick notes. All you need to know for this test, the bare bones. So I know that if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, if you're an older sibling who is taking, like, let's say AP biology, we know that there's so much more. We know that this is like chapters and chapters of dense information, but we are only going to focus on what you must know for this Living Environment Regents exam. So what you see in front of you is a cropped out cell, animal cell, eukaryotic cell, from a test. We're only going to use visuals that come directly from the test because that's exactly what we want to focus on, just what's on the test. So this is an animal cell, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to label everything and then focus on only the organelles that are constantly questioned. So we are going to start with the outermost layer, and we're going to focus on labeling the organelles and cell structures. Now, notice how, let me just erase this real quick. Notice how I'm going to start out of order. Those numbers aren't necessarily there for me to explain. Those questions came from, this is a cropped out picture from a test, and they put labels on organelles so that they can ask you questions on it. But I just left the numbers there just, because they're already pointing to the organelles and I didn't want to make it too messy. But let's start with number 4, which is the cell membrane. The cell membrane is also known as the plasma membrane. Now, again, we are just labeling. Let me use a nice yellow highlight to highlight the cell membrane. The cell membrane is this outermost layer all around. That is the cell membrane, also known as the plasma membrane. Okay, next, let's do the mitochondria. So the mitochondria is this jelly bean-like structure that you see here. And this cell just happens to have 2 mitochondria. Now let me draw a mitochondria on the side for you. They're usually shaped like a bean, like some kind of jelly bean, and they have a structure inside of it, and my AP students know what this is. You don't need to know what it is. You just need to know how to recognize that this is a mitochondria, and that's the classic shape that you would see and recognize the mitochondria. Okay, now this one has 2, so that is the mitochondria. Next, let's take a look at the vacuole. So here's the vacuole. Actually, let me get my highlighter. So the vacuole, as you can see here, number 2 is pointing to this guy here, and there's another vacuole here. There's another vacuole here. Okay, so those are the vacuoles, and we're going to see, of course, what they do. Next, let me use green. Why not? Let's label the nucleus. The nucleus is right at the center of this animal cell, and it has a very important job. Okay, next, let's do the ribosome. So the ribosome are all these dots that are on what's called the endoplasmic reticulum. But you see all these dots here on the endoplasmic reticulum? All these dots that you see here is called the ribosome. Now, sometimes you can find the ribosome in what's called the cytoplasm. So sometimes you're going to see some free-floating ribosomes, and they're going to resemble these circular dots floating here. So I'm going to also label these drawn free-floating things that's in the cytoplasm as ribosomes as well. I'm also going to I'm going to point to the inside of that cell and label it the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm. Now, I don't talk about the cytoplasm too much, but the cytoplasm is the jelly-like substance. Let's see what color. It's very important here. Let's do something really, really light. I'm going to actually do gray. Oh, that's why it's not changing. Let's do really light pink. So the cytoplasm, just to emphasize, guys, is the inside of the cell. The jelly-like substance that holds all of the organelles in place. Okay? That is the cytoplasm. And the cytoplasm, again, is a jelly-like substance that holds all of the cells in its place. It's the matrix of the cell. And it also gives the cell its shape. A lot of things happen in the cytoplasm. Okay, so the endoplasmic reticulum, right, is these lasagna kind of shaped noodly things that you find right next to the nucleus. This is the endoplasmic reticulum that you see here. The ones that have the ribosomes attached to it. Now, the reason why I have the endoplasmic reticulum highlighted in red is because it's one of those organelles that it's not usually talked about on the test. If it is talked about, it's probably talked about in like a reading comprehension where it has a lot of information. Now here we have the Golgi apparatus. And the Golgi apparatus is also highlighted in red because, again, it is not discussed too heavily. It is not tested on too heavily on the exam. Okay, so we have here the cell membrane as the outermost layer. The mitochondria, there are 2 of them. The vacuole, we have 3 of them. The nucleus, we have 1, but here's the nucleus. The ribosome, which are these dots on the endoplasmic reticulum, and the Golgi apparatus. All right, let's move on. So to emphasize, the most questions that you will see on this exam are going to be very first, doesn't have to be in this order, the nucleus, okay, the ribosomes, the vacuole, the mitochondria, and of course the cell membrane. Now the cell membrane is going to have literally its own video. There's a lot to discuss about the cell membrane, so that's a separate video on itself. So now we're finishing up, we're halfway there with just the notes. We are going to talk about the functions of the organelles now, with the most popular ones. So let's, of course, talk about the cell membrane, which is also known as the plasma membrane. And remember that I said that this is the outermost layer of the cell. So what does it do? Okay, so it allows certain molecules to enter or leave the cell. It regulates what moves in and out of the cell. Sorry, I got cut off. And we like to call this selectively permeable. So this is kind of like a bodyguard, but it lets certain molecules in and out of the cell. Now we are going to get more in depth in the understanding of the cell membrane in a different video, one step at a time. And remember that the cell membrane is also known as the plasma membrane. Here we have the vacuole, okay? The vacuole stores water, waste, nutrients. Sometimes there's digestion happening. Some enzymes are there breaking things down, but not really. It's more of like it stores water, it stores waste sometimes, and sometimes it stores nutrients. It's a place where the cells stores, guys. Remember that with the vacuole, like a vacuum sucks things up and stores it in its bag. So the vacuole kind of acts that way. Okay, that's why I was getting cut off, because I had to minimize it. All right, guys, now the mitochondria. The mitochondria, remember, are these jelly bean-like structures, very easy to draw. It's very important that you recognize the mitochondria right away as soon as you see it. The mitochondria has a lot going on. The mitochondria makes energy in the form of ATP. Now, the king word that you have to always associate the mitochondria with is energy. As soon as you see the word energy, that should already give a big clue that they're talking about the mitochondria. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. That is the name, the full name of the abbreviation of ATP, which is the energy. Okay, I am now using a bunch of ATP energy because I am alive and I am making this video for you. My cells are constantly making ATP. It's also the site of cellular respiration. So when the mitochondria make that ATP, that process is called cellular respiration. It's also sometimes just called respiration. So respiration can mean when you're breathing, but I don't want you to confuse just you breathing and cellular respiration, which is the process of your cells making ATP. Do not confuse it. Cellular respiration is when your cells are making ATP energy. Mitochondria has its own DNA. There's some mitochondrial DNA found in there. Some pretty cool forensics cases have been solved because of this mitochondrial DNA. So you should Google that. That's super cool. Extracts energy from chemical bonds in the food we eat. So to make this energy, we get some of that energy from the food we eat. And in those bonds, those chemical bonds that you find in food, it extracts that energy. And that is one of the main processes that's happening in the mitochondria to make ATP energy. Yes, there's a whole process. Yes, it's more complicated than this. But to be honest, this is all you need to know for this particular exam, the function of the mitochondria. And we're going to actually have a separate video of cellular respiration. So we will get more in depth of that particular biochemical process. The ribosome, remember the ribosomes are these little dots that we saw on the endoplasmic reticulum, and they're also sometimes free floating in the cytoplasm. So the ribosome is super simple to remember. It carries out the process of protein synthesis. This is also another biochemical process. Okay, if you were to take this test back when I took it, a long time ago, it would have been a lot more difficult. There was a lot of biochemistry. Past teachers, if you're watching this, you know what I'm talking about. So this cellular respiration is a biochemical process. Protein synthesis is also another biochemical process. But ribosomes carries out the process of protein synthesis. So it's basically, well, what is protein synthesis? To synthesize is to make. So protein synthesis is when your cells make protein, when they're making protein, all right? And that takes a lot of steps. And protein synthesis, we will talk about that also in a future video. But for now, ribosomes make proteins by the biochemical process of protein synthesis. Next, we have the nucleus. Remember, the nucleus is this middle round structure. It controls cell activity, ladies and gentlemen. It controls cell activity. Well, what are these cell activities? It controls cellular respiration, which we just said is when your cell makes ATP energy in the mitochondria. Don't forget that. It controls photosynthesis. It controls protein synthesis. And it stores DNA. Whenever you see a question that talks about hereditary information, they're talking about DNA and they're talking about the nucleus. So we are now ready to start the questions, and we're going to start with multiple choice. So let's go. We have quite a few of them. Right now will be a good time to start, taking a quick break, maybe get some water, splash your face. But we're about to go through a lot of information right now because we're going to go through these questions. These questions were directly taken from past Regents exams. Okay, let's start. Let me change my pen to something different. Now, it's super important that you guys annotate, underline, check, cross, whatever you need to do. When taking this exam, you can write all over your book. All right, let's get started with question number 1. In which cell structure is energy extracted from the nutrients? You remember energy? Now, did we talk about the chloroplast? We didn't. We're going to talk about this in the future. We definitely know that ribosomes are not associated with making energy. Okay? And the vacuole we know stores things. So the correct answer here is C, the mitochondria. Energy, mitochondria. Always remember, when your cells make energy in the process of cellular respiration, ATP, writing with a highlighter, we're speaking of the mitochondria. That was easy, right? All right, it's going to get a little more complex. The diagram below represents a cell in the human body. Always read these top directions. Sometimes the directions are pretty obvious. Sometimes they give you clues or they let you know what you're looking at. Just in case you have test anxiety and you're like, what am I looking at? You're looking at the animal cell, specifically in a human body. Let's get started here. Which statement concerning the structures within this cell is accurate? Okay, structure 1. Before you even continue to read, look at structure 1. Structure 1, they're talking about the ribosomes. Is a chloroplast? I don't even need to finish. That is definitely not a chloroplast. Structure 2, before you even read, let's see, it's pointing to the nucleus. Is a vacuole? Nope. Guys, this is an actual Regents questions. I hope you see how easy this is now that you know the basic information. Structure 3, that is the mitochondria. Okay, you got my attention. Where respiration takes place, this is also known as cellular respiration. Always remember that. Sometimes they just say respiration. This is absolutely correct, but we'll get back to that. Structure 4 is the cell membrane. That is true. That 4 is the cell membrane. They're pointing to the outermost layer, which provides rigid support. Here is where things get tricky, guys. After we finish the animal cell, we will talk about the plant cell. The plant cell has an outermost layer called the cell wall, and that gives rigid support. But that is not what the cell membrane does. So D, nice try, Regents. D is not the answer. The correct answer is C. Structure 3 is the mitochondria, where respiration takes place. A good thing for you to do, guys, now, maybe like after the 5th question, try to pause the video before I answer it to see how you're doing, and because you're just going to become an expert. All right, let's keep going. Mitochondria provide ribosomes with, okay, before you even read, what does mitochondria do? We know that it makes energy, right? So regardless of what it is that they're talking about, you know that the mitochondria's job is to give energy, that ATP energy, right? So let's see what they choose as what they're providing for the ribosome. ATP for protein synthesis. Wow, that sounds great. Amino acids for protein synthesis. Nope. I never said it gives amino acids. Oxygen for respiration. Absolutely not. We get oxygen from breathing it in through our lungs. Carbon dioxide. Absolutely not. So the correct answer is that it gives ATP for protein synthesis. It gives energy, guys, energy in the form of ATP. All right, next. In single-celled organisms, okay, cool. Materials are stored primarily in ribosomes do not store. The nucleus doesn't store. Mitochondria doesn't store. We know that a vacuole stores. Now, just in case you forgot what a vacuole was, let's go back to the labels. The vacuole right here, it has 3 of them. And the vacuole stores water, waste, and nutrients. Okay? Remembering that. Next, the diagram below represents a cell. Thank you. Obvious. Before I even look at this, I'm going to label everything. A is a vacuole. B is the cell membrane, also known as plasma membrane. C is pointing to that middle structure. That's the nucleus. D is pointing to the cytoplasm. Let's see. Which letter indicates the specific structure where most hereditary mutations occur? But I don't know what mutations are. Let's say you're thinking about this, right? You forget what mutations are, and we will definitely have a video about mutations in your DNA. But there's that word hereditary. What do you pass down to your children? DNA. Where's DNA found? In the nucleus. So the best answer for this is C. Okay? C, which is the nucleus. Okay? Let's remember this is the nucleus. And it contains DNA. And that's the hereditary information that you give to your future children. Next, let's read. The diagram below represents a cell that produces digestive enzymes. Now, this is something that we're going to have a video about protein synthesis in the future, but just remember that enzymes are proteins. Okay? Now, we're definitely going to bump into a lot of information that we should know, and I'm going to briefly, give you that background, but enzymes are proteins. Okay? Just remember that. Which cellular structure would be the most likely location for synthesis of these enzymes? Do you mean the synthesis of proteins? Making proteins to make? We know from our notes that that is the ribosome. So the best answer for this question is number 1. Number 1 is pointing to the ribosome. And the ribosomes synthesize proteins. So they also synthesize enzymes. Because enzymes are proteins. All right, let's keep going. I can already feel that energy and confidence coming from you. Again, start pausing this video before I explain to test yourself. Base your answer to the following question on the information and diagram below and on your knowledge of biology. The diagram represents a cell. Which structure is responsible for the synthesis of ATP? ATP, the mitochondria. Okay? Hello, we just spoke about this. The mitochondria is labeled C. There you go. Oh my gosh, this is too easy. This is too easy, guys. Come on, pause the video. Do this on your own first. Come on. You have to start doing this on your own. I feel like you already have it. Now, these are higher level questions, and even still, I know you'll get it. This is what I call one of those we didn't even need the diagram kind of questions. Check this out. Which row in the chart correctly identifies the functions of structures A, B, and C? Okay, no problem. We might actually forget it. My bad. We need the picture. I was confusing it with something else. Okay. So they're calling structure A. This is structure A. Structure A is a cell membrane. Let's label that here. Cell membrane. Okay. What is structure B? Structure B is the mitochondria. And structure C is the ribosome. Okay, you want to annotate, you want to break down the question as much as possible, especially when they're getting higher level, more difficult questions, because sometimes the way they format it, the way they have it set up is confusing. Okay, so let's read this again. Let me also erase all this other stuff. I don't want this to be too overwhelming for you with all these notes on it. Let me write this a little bit better for you. Structure A is a cell membrane. Structure B is the mitochondria. Structure C is the ribosome. Okay. Which row in the chart correctly identifies the functions of structures A, B, and C? Annotate your question so that you know what they're asking. They want to know which row, I'm sorry, that's a column. Which row, is it this row, this row, this row, or this row that has all of their functions correct? Okay, let's start from structure A, cell membrane. Does the cell membrane do waste removal? Does the cell membrane store information? Does it go through protein synthesis? Does it do cell communication? Okay, so it definitely does not store information. It definitely does not produce proteins. It doesn't do anything with proteins. Now, the cell membrane does remove waste. That is true. Some of the things that leave the cell, remember we said that the cell membrane is semi-permeable and allows certain things to enter and leave. Well, if the cell needs to remove something, it's excreted out of the cell, so it actually does remove waste. Does do waste removal. It also does communicate with cells because it has in the cell membrane what's called receptor molecules, and it has other cool things on it that it can communicate with other cells. So these two are correct. So we're gonna leave these two, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna highlight the ones that are correct. Okay, next. Structure B, which is the mitochondria, extract energy from nutrients. That is correct. Transport of materials. Nope, it does not do any transport. Storage of materials. That's the vacuole. Transport of materials again. No, they put it twice. So the correct, this one only has one that's correct. So it's looking like number one is the answer because they're all supposed to be correct. And so far, none of them have the two in a row. So let's see if this is correct for the ribosome. Does the ribosome go through the process of protein synthesis? It absolutely does. So the answer to this is row 1. Sheesh, this is the type of question that's going to take you 2 to 5 minutes to do. Really important to watch yourself, but you do get 3 hours to do the exam. But did you see how, like, this question was a lot? You had to break things down. So let's move on. Okay, we're back to a simpler life. All right. A cell is represented in the diagram below. Well, thanks. We know that. The coded information, heredity, DNA that the cell uses to synthesize many different proteins, this is where they get you. Uses to synthesize many different proteins, is stored in structure. 2 reasons why I don't like this question. They put 2 definitions of 2 functions of 2 different organelles to talk about one process. They're talking about protein synthesis, but they specifically want you to name the coded information that the cell uses, and they keep going. They want to know, do you know where the coded information is, which is DNA, hereditary information? They're talking about the nucleus, okay? So the best answer for this question is B. So when referring to the nucleus, we got to break this down. So in the nucleus, it controls all cell activity. It controls all. So it controls protein synthesis. It contains DNA. It's where hereditary information is found, which is DNA. It has coded information, which is another way of just describing DNA. Okay, so just remember these. We're referring to the same wonderful organelle. All right, the cheek cell. Did you guys do this? I don't know if you guys were hybrid or if you guys were just, complete remote. But if you were lucky enough to be inside of a lab and doing experiments, you might have done what's called the cheek cell lab. Well, where you take a toothpick and you scrape the inside of your cheek and you put it on a slide, and then you get these cells. Okay, kind of an odd shaped cell. And we have here, I think this is 1 cell, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are about 6 cheek cells in this view in a slide. Let me just erase this real quick. Okay, we have about 6 cells there. And then this is how you would have drawn them, because you have to draw the cell. And then the outermost layer is the cell membrane. This inside is a cytoplasm. This one is the nucleus. So let's see. Structure A is most likely, so structure A is a nucleus, guys. That's what a cheek cell, and this is why I think the Regents should have been canceled. But this is one of the reasons why I'm making these videos for you. It's not fair if you didn't do the lab in the school, but you're still tested on it. So if you when I turn to this and you're like, oh yeah, that's cheek cells, the only reason you would have known is because you did the experiment. But now you're watching this video. Now you're going to be super ready, guys. Structure A is most likely, it's not the mitochondria. We don't have the technology to use the compound light microscopes in your school to see a mitochondria. That's too complex. You can't see it. The nucleus, yes, but let's see if what they're saying is correct. It is the nucleus, but is it that is the site of food storage? Nope, that's incorrect. We already know it's not the mitochondria, so don't even try us. Son, how dare you? The nucleus that is responsible for the storage of information. Another one to add to the list. Storage of information. I'm sorry, this pisses me off. So many different ways to talk about the same thing, DNA being in the nucleus. So the best answer for this, ladies and gentlemen, is D, the cheek cell lab question. Okay. The letters in the diagram below indicate some parts of a cell. Okay. It's different from the cell we've been looking at, but it's the same concept. Outermost layer cell membrane. B is the nucleus. C is the cytoplasm. D is the mitochondria. Now notice that this is pointing to just a random space in between. If it were pointing to one of these little guys, then we know that this is a ribosome. This is when I was talking about the ribosomes and how they're sometimes free floating in the cytoplasm. But again, A is cell membrane, B is nucleus, C is the cytoplasm, D is the mitochondria. Okay, let's see what they want from us. The function of which cell part is most similar to that of a human excretory system. The excretory system is when you remove waste. So that's the removal of waste. And we said that the organelle that does this is the cell membrane A. So the best answer for this question is A, which is the cell membrane. Next, You guys are getting good. Again, remember, pause the video and try to do this on your own so then you see if you got it right. In the diagram below, which letter indicates the part of the cell that carries out the function, a function most similar to a function of the human excretory system? A very complex and long way of asking the same thing. The excretory system is similar to the cell membrane. That is B. Next. Which organelle is correctly paired with its specific function? Okay, this is basically which one of these is correct. Cell membrane, storage of hereditary information. No, that is the nucleus. Chloroplast, that's in a plant cell. Transports materials, that's not what it does. We're going to talk about this when we do the plant cell. Ribosome, synthesize of proteins. That sounds right. Vacuole, production of ATP. How dare you? That's the mitochondria. The best answer for this question is C, ribosome, synthesis of proteins. All right, guys. Look at this beauty. This is what our next video, number 4, is going to be about, the cell membrane. This cell membrane, this picture is the magnified version of it. The cell membrane is very complex. We have protein here. We have the phospholipid bilayer. Now, again, this should all sound familiar to you, but if you study the cell membrane, it was from a long time ago. You're going to learn a lot about this in my next video. Okay, what does it want from us? Which cellular organelle is represented by the diagram below? It's a cell membrane. Oh, but look here. They used it, the other name for it, plasma membrane, but it's still what it is. That is the answer, guys. C, cell membrane, which is also known as plasma membrane. All right, guys, we're reaching the end of the video, which we're gonna now practice short responses. Lord, guys, please, this is super important that you write clearly. Teachers are human too. You imagine this scenario in your head. You're a teacher. You just finished grading like 59 exams. You're the last one that they grade. How wonderful would it be if your handwriting is correct? If you have no emojis drawn, no IDKs. Literally, there are students who do this on exams. You have to try. Do not do this, guys. It's going to hurt you if you miss things. I know, oh, what am I going to put? I don't know the information. I just don't know. You have to try, guys. You have to try. Don't leave things blank and don't do that. So try your best to spell correctly. Try your best to write clearly, legibly, where they can actually read what you're writing. So this is the tip I want to give you. Buy a smooth, nice gel pen, either blue or black ink. Not colors, because they're not going to let you write. When you get that free cheap pen, you forgot your pen here, and then they're even mad to give you that. Those pens are cheap, so they don't write smooth, and then your wrist hurts. That's why your wrist hurts when you take those long essay exams, because you're using a pen that is not fluid. Gel pens all the way. I will link the pens that I use. I'm not sponsored, as you know, not yet at least, but I am going to link in this video the best pens for test taking. But you need a lot of them. Like, you need to take like 5 of them, because gel pens tend to waste, and I wouldn't be surprised if you like use a whole pen. Anyways, another tip that I want to give you is bullet points. I don't know if they changed it to this, or if they still kept it where it's bullet points. When you get to the short responses, if you see that you have bullet points or separate parts to one short answer question, you have to answer in that way, okay? You have to break it down. to give the teacher very clear direction of your answers. Okay, so let's read. Just like complex organisms, cells are able to survive by coordinating various activities. Complex organisms have a variety of systems, and cells have a variety of organelles that work together for survival. Describe the roles of two organelles. In your answer, be sure to A. The names of two organelles and the function of each. That's a lot. Let's do that one first. Okay. A. The names of two organelles. Let's choose the nucleus and the mitochondria. Okay. The names of two organelles. They want the function. The nucleus. Do you remember? Say it in your head. Controls cell activity. Got it. The mitochondria makes ATP energy. Notice, I did not reinstate the question. I answered the question directly. I'm annotating, and I already checked off A. My handwriting is not perfect. I'm writing on an iPad with an Apple pen, so it's a little difficult to make it super, super neat, especially if I want to go fast and I don't want to, take time just, making this super neat. But you can read this. You can read this. If you misspell a word here or there, that's fine. You're not going to get points taken off because of that. But if you spell controls like con artist or some crazy different, word, they're not going to really understand. And you keep doing that, you're not going to have a good flow of a sentence. Okay. And notice how it's not really like complete sentences. I'm basically just giving them what they want. Next, B. An explanation of how these two organelles work together. Easy. B. Now, I'm being bold here that I skipped a space because, again, you get very limited space on that test. An explanation of how these two work together? Sure. The nucleus controls all cell activity, which then controls cellular respiration, which happens in the mitochondria. Okay? Simple, to the point. My handwriting isn't perfect. Some of you have gorgeous handwriting, but you can read this. Okay? Now we finished B. Okay, now they want C. I'm not going to skip one. The name of an organelle and the name of a system in the human body that have similar functions. You only need to answer one, but I'm going to give you several. We know one because we already did 2 questions on it. The cell membrane. It removes toxins, right? Removes toxins. And that is like the excretory system. That's one. Another one is the nucleus. Controls cell activity. So it acts like a brain. Acts like the brain of the cell. Resembles nervous system of the human body. For some reason, and we can check off C. For some reason, the Regents loves asking you it loves asking students to compare the unicellular organism with the multicellular organism of a human. And it's good to make that comparison, but just make sure that you're ready to answer these questions. Now, please notice all of these tips and tricks. You break down your answer the same way and order it's broken down in the question. You do not need to reinstate the question in your answer. Be direct. Use the scientific terminologies that they want to see that you know. Okay, you have to give them the names of the organelles, the system, the human body systems, the organelles, the functions, explain. Okay, but notice also you did not have to write an essay. You didn't even have to write a paragraph. This is where things get a little bit more complex, but you can do it because now you have the information. We are now at the end of this video, okay, with our last short response question. Let's read it and break it down and see what they want. Base your answer to the following question on the diagram below, which shows some of the specialized organelles in a single-celled organism. A contains food. C contains DNA. B contains liquid waste. D contains receptors. Okay. So let's say you have no idea what this means, contains receptors. And we will talk about that in a very in the video that I'll have about the cell membrane. Just look at where it's pointing to. It's pointing to the outermost layer of this cell. So D is the cell membrane. If something isn't labeled, you got to label it yourself. C contains DNA. That is the nucleus. Contains liquid waste. That is the vacuole. Contains food. That is also another vacuole. Okay, we labeled this. Now let's see the questions, what they want. It's broken down. A, let's start with A. Write the letter of one of the labeled organelles and state the name of that organelle. Okay, one more time. Sorry about the background. I am so sorry. I just need to let my husband know to lower his violent movie. Okay, hopefully that'll take away the gunshots in the background. Okay, if it even recorded. Okay, A, let's do this. Write the letter of one of the labeled organelles and state the name of that. Oh, that's such a cool free point. You got it. No problem. With A, let's choose D. And that is the cell membrane. You got it. Next one, B. Explain how the function of the organelle you selected in A assists in the maintenance of homeostasis. Sure. Remember in the previous video 1 and video 2, homeostasis is to keep an internal stable environment. Okay? And the way that the cell membrane keeps the cell in homeostasis is that it's selectively permeable. So it maintains homeostasis. Let me write smaller. Maintains homeostasis because it allows specific molecules to enter and specific molecules to leave. Let's be a little fancy and put that it's semi-permeable. Keeping fluid balance. Ugh, How beautiful was that, guys? Direct to the point. Let me just make sure that I labeled this as B, my B answer. A lot of A's, B's, all of this. Make sure you keep organized. We did A. We just did B. Let's do C. Identify a system in the human body that performs a function similar to that of the organelle you selected in part A. A human body system. C. I'm telling you, they love doing this. Identify a system in the human body. Let's read this one more time. In the human body that performs a function similar to that of the organelle you selected. So we selected the cell membrane. The cell membrane, what does it do? It also removes toxins. So it just said to identify a system. It didn't say explain. So we can put the excretory system. Ladies and gentlemen, we are finished. We were able to answer 2 short responses, give you some clues on that. We were able to go through all of these multiple choice questions, and we were able to relearn and review all about the animal cell. Thank you so much for